Hello and welcome everybody to the Supporters Gaming League podcast. We may have a name yet, might be called BrakeDown. As my co-host, I am joined by Sean Ringrose from the Surge. How are you doing?
I'm hurting after Saturday. Actually, that cut me deep, man. Wow, what a game, what a match, what a series.
You know what? I feel exactly the way you did. I feel like we had to have had similar results if that's the case.
Yeah.
And we will certainly do a quick recap of what we got going on over here. But yeah, let's jump right into it. SGL 1, let's just start off with that. Moments of the week. My man, yourself, you streamed the entire SGL 1, so you definitely have had to see a top moment.
Yeah, my top moment. Oh man, you know, it's a behind the scenes moment. It's something that most people don't get to see on a regular basis. But there was a moment. I'm sitting there, and you couldn't see this either because you were playing at the time. But I'm sitting there. The video feed for the cameras is not shown during the match. And so when you guys went up a goal against Southmost, I literally raised both arms in the air like, yes, because you had like a minute and a half to go or 2 minutes to go. And I'm like, they've got this in the bag. You guys were rocking and rolling. And then it didn't go from there. So, but it was the moment of, hey, I feel like that like internal prediction that I had where I was pushing you, specifically your team Steel Army, to do this, and you guys were showing and you guys were proving that, hey, what I had, what I thought was right, and that was my moment of the week. No joke. That particular part of it was the moment of my week because it was you guys were playing fantastic, and I was super excited to see it because I was like, they're going to get their first win against Southmost, and it's going to come at a really pivotal point for them. It didn't pan out that way. We'll talk about that in a different segment maybe, but that was my moment of the week regardless. What about you?
Definitely some sweaty games there. We thought we were so close, but ended up not happening. My moment of the week, watched the entire game. Libres y Locos versus East Side Rising. Was it game 3? Was it that 8-minute overtime?
Was that game 3 or game 2? I don't even remember because it was like I was so exhausted just from streaming the entirety of that and trying to juggle to get it. Oh man, but yeah, it was. I mean, I watched the entire thing, but it was just there was that moment where it was like I after the first match, I was like, okay, this is a close series. This is or going to be a close series, and they ESR were playing out of their mind. They were holding their own. I think what was that 0-0 going into OT.
It was a really low score.
Yeah,
If
it
it
wasn't
wasn't
0-0,
zero
it was one
zero, it
one.
was 1-1. Anything. Dear, I think I was actually losing years off my life watching that just because of how stressful it was. And I'm casually warming up with my teammates, and I just go look. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this game's still going on.
You
And
know,
I gotta stop scrims. I gotta watch this game.
it's funny too, right? So if you're streaming, and if you've done streaming, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about this. But there's transitions we have set up for SGL to transition when a team wins. And so I had that set, and I had my prediction, and I had that set, and I was waiting, and then it went to OT, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm like kind of going back and forth, like, is ESR gonna win this or or not? And so I'm switching back and forth and back and forth, and I think there was a point in there where I nearly the place to click to switch is not really big compared to the place to click to have it go up on the feed. Anybody who was watching knows the Dark Clouds incident. Oops, my bad, sorry. Where I showed the Dark Clouds winner when they weren't even playing in the match. Oops, it happens. I think it was like the first match of the week too. Yeah, so I'm sitting there just kind of flipping back and forth, watching the match, just going, okay, when is this? Who's going to actually score here? Because there were ample opportunities, but both teams were playing absolute defense out of their mind, and it was so much fun to watch. But it was really stressful on this end because there were things that I had to prep for next match that I couldn't even start prepping for.
And you're such a fan. It's like, how can I not watch? Like, I gotta prep for this, and these guys are like making me regret that I have to work for this.
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, that covers our top moments of the week. Moving on into our next segment. Probably the hot takes, the ones that may inspire other teams to gang up on either me or Sean, depending on
Totally
how
fair.
we go.
Totally fair.
but we're going to be going into our top 3 and bottom 3 power rankings of SGL 1. To start off, let's go with our top 3. Do you have a top 3 in mind right now?
I mean, look, it would be easy for me to go like Roadies number 1, Los Cinco Doce number 2, and then like Libre Si Locos number 3 right now. Honestly, for my money, I do think the Roadies are the best in the league. I gave them a little bit of flack last week. I said they weren't really there. They were close, but the way Louisville Coopers had been playing, it was tough to not grant Louisville Coopers that opportunity. Louisville Coopers showed plenty in their matches. Look, they're gonna be a force to contend with come playoffs, if not knocking somebody out that nobody expects to see. But I definitely feel like Roadies are number 1. I think for me, number 2 has to be Los Cinco Doce. You just see the fluidity of their movement. You see the way that they pass the ball around, their comfort level playing with each other. It's just second to none. And then I think if you look at number 3, for me, there's no doubt that it's the Cauldron, but there's a caveat to that. When Serrano's on his game as their third player, he is very difficult to stop. When he's nervous, I don't know, maybe it's not nerves, but when he's struggling or isn't syncing up with the rest of the team, it's a different Serrano than we're used to seeing like we see in scrims. But for my money, I would put Cauldron at number 3. But trust me when I say Libre Si Locos are like right there as well. It's a really close one.
Man, I think we might actually have the same top 3 this time.
It's not a hard top 3, that's for sure. I mean, the order may change slightly, but the teams involved, I think, deserve the top 3.
No, like absolutely. Like seeing the Roadies, we're expecting probably like a 2-1 in any team's favor after what we could possibly see. Roadies end up taking all 3, kind of going back to what they're used to doing. And so can't be totally surprised that happened, but you got to give them credit for what they're doing so far. Definitely earned that number 1 spot in my eye. Number 2, I got to give it to Los Cinco Doce, as you mentioned. Fluidity, chemistry, the way they were able to go up against Dark Clouds, and then finally pull out that overtime win. Even Death was talking about it before. Those were sweaty games. They had to pull out a lot just to get past Dark Clouds.
Yeah.
And just to see them power through that, get through, I think I got to give them number 2 on that just for that effort and playing such a really good team in Dark Clouds. Number 3, I got to give it to the Cauldron just based on what we've seen so far. Really solid, as you mentioned, points with Serrano. But I'm going to throw in honorable mentions out there. To the 4th, I'm going to give it to the Coopers going up against the Roadies. That's always a tough matchup. And so a lot of respect. I think they're just caught in a matchup against the Roadies where it's like, yeah, it's like power rankings probably might not shake up that much just because, it's such top teams going up against each other right now. It's so hard to separate them. And then obviously I got to hand it to Libre Si Locos for an honorable mention as well. Geez, like looking at this group, you probably did not expect to see the order go Los Cinco Doce, then Libre Si Locos going in second. And they took 2 from ESR. They took 3 from Southmost.
Yep.
So the way they're performing right now, look out, because they're putting teams like Steel Army and ESR on the brink. It's like, oh gosh, they really got to perform now. ESR especially because they played both of like those teams hovering around the bottom that want to fight for that spot to get into the playoffs. So they're really going to need to dig deep down. But Libre Si Locos are sitting comfortable right now. They're going to be playing Steel Army next. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah, for sure. I was about to ask. You guys have them coming up next week. We'll get to our predictions about that match. Don't get me wrong, but it's an interesting, with you kind of already having said your top 3. Let's talk bottom 3 now. I think this is only fair. So if we look at points, I'll just read off 3 based on points. That would be Mint City would be on the bottom with 0 points. Eastside Rising has 2. You guys have 2. Los Verdes have 3. Mad Hat have 4. Out of those 5 teams, my 3 on the bottom right now actually are Mint City, I think Los Verdes, and I hate to say it, but Steel Army. I think ESR are on the coming up. They're on their way. I look. You guys have the capability to be better, but you got to prove it. And at this point, I'm not seeing what I know you guys are capable of.
Okay, that's totally fair. I think I'm going to differ with you in the one aspect where I'd sub in ESR for us. So I got to put Mid-City at the bottom. It's unfortunate. A lot of tough teams to play. Unfortunately, have not come out with a win yet. And that spot next to them, Los Verdes. They got those 3 points off of a forfeit from Mad Hat Massive. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough from them yet. I gotta still keep them down there. So until they prove me otherwise, they're gonna have to stay down there. And then at that last spot, I'm gonna give it to ESR because they've managed 2 points through this all, and they've played Steel Army and Libres y Locos and Las Cinco Doce. Granted, I mean, all the matchups in SGL 1, whatever group you're going to be in, are tough, but stealing one from those two teams, Libres and Steel Army, I'd want to see a little more out of that, to be honest. And even though it's fair to be like, yeah, we were so close against Southmost, and they've definitely had their ups and downs. We've seen it against Dark Clouds and against Libres, but I'm gonna give Steel Army the edge. Call it personal bias, I don't care. But if it's any consolation, we're not that much higher.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's only 6 teams in each group, so it's not like we're talking. It's not like we're talking that you guys are bottom 4 out of 12 is really not that bad considering the teams that are above you. Like you said, I mean, nobody would have predicted Libres y Locos being second place in your group in particular. And your group is the group of death without a doubt. I mean, you're talking, you've got Libres y Locos, you've got Dark Clouds, you've got Southmost, and you have Los Cinco Doce. I mean,
which literally has death in it.
Which literally has death in it. Yeah, the group of death, quite literally. But you look at that group, and you just even looking at it when the groups came out and the fixtures came out. I know you guys have the capability to be better than you've shown. I've told you that time and time again, and I'll stand by that, and I'll preach that till I go blue in the face if I have to.
Yeah.
But up until this point, you guys have not reached that level that I expect out of you guys, or that I know you guys are capable of reaching. And in your group, that is literally, I'm going to use this, and it's going to be tongue in cheek, but that is literally the death knell for your team for this season. If you guys don't hit that level that I know you're capable of hitting and get out of your own way almost, I think, at times, that, then, yeah, the bottom 3 is definitely where you guys are going to be. And I don't know how long that's going to last, but you don't have long to get it corrected.
I will give you credit, though. If we do not take a single game against Libres this coming week, I feel like I'd have to put us down there at that point, because at least ESR can say they took a point off them.
That's very true. I mean, yeah, for sure. So, of course, now we've done our bottom 3 each. So then, of course, next topic would be predictions for the week.
Predictions for the week. Let's pull up this here schedule over here. As we've got...
I like that we start off with this match for the week, by the way. That is brilliance personified.
Yeah, might be one of the best transitions from a topic right into a next topic.
It's almost like I planned it. No, I didn't, trust me. It wasn't a planned segue. It just works really well.
But no, first matchup of that week. Libres y Locos for Steel Army. We've played them many times before. It's always a tight matchup with them. We played them, I believe, 3 times total, if I'm not mistaken, 2. I can't remember if we won by forfeit. No, wait, I think we took 1 off of them last season. And then I think we took 2 out of 3 in the first season. Super, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm really just saying words.
We all say words at times.
But with the way this group is going, I'm going to give it 2-1 to Libres y Locos.
Oh boy! All right.
Simply put, I love the way Libres y Locos are playing right now, because with Steel Army, it's kind of a boomer ball right now. We're getting the ball clear, but we're not exactly controlling a ton of our touches. We make the most out of the chances that we do end up getting some controlled possession out of, but not entirely. I don't think Libres y Locos have had like a single bad touch in like the past 4 games. They've been pretty much solid the entire time. So if they can keep that up, and if we're not on the backboard against them, we are not going to have a fun time.
Interesting. So looking at this matchup, I'm going to preach again to you a little bit because I think you need to hear it. Look, you guys are better than you've played. There's no doubt about it. This is your chance to go out there against a team that at times have looked phenomenal, at times have been very strong, but at times have also shown that they do have cracks. They do have opportunities you guys can exploit. And as we know, sometimes teams just line up better against other teams. So take the opportunity. Don't come in with any hesitation. Don't come in with any nervousness. Just go out there and play your style. Play your match. Be willing to be aggressive enough to take it to them. But at the same time, not so aggressive that you're triple committing and or double committing in the air, because that is really not a good idea. Super will absolutely eat you alive if you do that, and I can't think of his name because I just literally had enough.
J Money?
J Money was the other one. Thank you. Or J Money will eat you alive. But they are playing very well right now, so you have to wonder if they continue playing the way they're playing. If you guys, when you kind of hinted at it, if you guys come out of this week, out of this matchup with not having taken any points from them at all. That's going to put them on 9 points for what it's worth, and that'll put you guys at remaining at 2 points, possibly with Eastside Rising. Well, I guess we'll find out when we get to that prediction. But that's going to be rough going into the final week of the season at that point. Final week of this. Is it final week or final 2 weeks of the season? I'm losing track.
Final 2 weeks. I believe we have a break in between those weeks.
That's right.
So
we do have Labor Day weekend that is going to be. By the way, news everybody, you have Labor Day weekend off. Take it and enjoy it with your families and or friends and or teams. That's right. Okay, so we're on week 4. So, looking into it, you have to wonder, can you guys pick up, 3 points in weeks between weeks 5 and 6? Can you guys, we know that it is likely going to be the top 4 that advance, perhaps even less than the top 4. They haven't announced the playoff structure yet, and I don't even know yet 100% for sure. But if it's only the top 4 that advance, you guys are in that position where you might be in relegation zone, and you're going to have to, and I know you guys are better than that. And so, anyways, coming back full circle to talk about this, look, you guys are better than that. So I expect you guys to be better than that. So this is what I'm going to say. You guys take it 2-1 from Libre C Locos, and you guys come away with 4 points after the week, and Libre C Locos are sitting on 7 points at the end of the week.
I like it. I hope your prediction comes true, or even better.
Wouldn't be bad.
Man, that was just the first matchup.
Yes.
And we already got to go into matchup number 2. And I feel like we don't have too much to talk about here, unfortunately. Just looking at the strength of matchup here, we've got Mid-City Collective versus Louisville Coopers. Mid-City have been struggling this season. It's been no doubt about it. But then they got to go up against Louisville, or fresh off of a sweep against the Roadies. They're going to be looking for those 3 points back.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to believe that Mint City are capable of pulling out an upset for at least one of the matches this week. But truth be told, this is the Cooper series to lose, and by series to lose, I mean all 3 points, because they're most, in my opinion, just like you're kind of insinuating, they're taking all 3 points, and it's going to take something special from Pata. It's going to take something special from his other players to figure out a way to slow down this Louisville team that, like you said, they're coming off an absolute, drop back to earth, if you will, in terms of mental and emotional after that Roadies series. And now you have to wonder, are they in that position now where they're hungry to come out and be, overly aggressive, or not overly aggressive, but even more aggressive than we've seen, and even more, focused and even more intent on just taking it to Mint City. I don't know, but I do think that Louisville take all 3 points in this one as well. I don't even know how close this series will be, but I don't think it'll be that close.
I think we both expect that, and I think it's going to take a Herculean effort, especially on the backs of the support cast for Mid-City Collective. We've seen them show some really bright spots before, but they're going to need to have it basically every minute of that series for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, looking at it, if your predictions so far stay true, Louisville and Libre C Locos will both be on 8 points at the end of the week. Not that it matters because they're in 2 separate groups, but it's interesting to know that. And then Steel Army would be at 3 points, and Mint City Collective would be at 0 points. Again, different groups, so it doesn't matter as much. In mine, it would be Libre C Locos with 7, Louisville with 8, you guys with 4, and Mint City Collective with 0. But yeah, I think we pretty much agree on that match, and I don't think many people would argue too much otherwise at that point.
Moving on to our third matchup. Eastside Rising versus Dark Clouds. I really don't know what to think here. I've seen Dark Clouds at their best, their worst, they're okay. We've seen the return of T-Bone.
Makes a big difference.
So I don't know. I feel like I got to see a roster to make a complete prediction. But if I'm expecting all three Dark Clouds out there, sorry, ESR. I'm going to have to predict a 3-0 for Dark Clouds in this case. The way Dark Clouds are structured, they've been broken a bit more this season, but they're still really sound. And they do take a ton of boost off of you. And Eastside have been known to kind of chill back a bit, be a little close together in net, and not exactly pick up some boost. So I'm expecting Dark Cloud's pressure to be overwhelming against them.
I do think that's probably pretty fair looking at the matchup. Look, I would love to sit here and say, man, ESR are on the up and up. They're going to be able to take a point off Dark Clouds. And it's entirely plausible that they could. Mm-hmm. However, if T-Bone is back and is back this week yet again, that's just it's so hard to stop that. It's so hard to stop their rhythm, their flow, their passing. I mean, they're just so good together. And so, and I can't, as much as I want to think that, Justin and Tyler have that little bit extra that they can go and they can be right there. I mean, I got to go with Dark Clouds 3-0 on this one too. And it hurts me because I would love to see ESR take a point off Dark Clouds because it would be such a huge momentum boost for them moving forward.
Yeah, I feel you there. If I see Ryan Matthew out there again, I can see ESR taking a point. It would be a very hard-fought game, though. It's going to take a lot just to get a point on Dark Clouds. So, hoping for the best for ESR, but that Dark Clouds team is just stacked.
So, interestingly, we were talking about the 8 points and the 8 points between Libres y Locos and Louisville based on your predictions. That would also put Dark Clouds at 8 points. So, Libres y Locos and Dark Clouds would be back to level at 8 points if your predictions hold up.
Man, that group is rough. The more we keep talking about these predictions, it just gets rougher and rougher.
That's why I decided I'm going to break it down this week after we give our predictions to the point totals, because man, that changes things dramatically when you start looking at those points. You're like, oh, that's not so good. All right.
To our next match, we're flipping and flopping between both divisions each time. Yep. To the other division, the Cauldron versus Mad Hat Massive. This is a matchup that I always love to see, because I literally think it's just a matchup of who can die less.
That's fair.
And also who can out team play each other. Because Mad Hat Massive, we've seen a ton from Magic doing solo plays and helping set up teammates really well. But also we know how the Cauldron play. They are aggressive in the midfield. You will barely get a counterattack going sometimes. You'll likely die a lot. And probably the worst spots, too. All this into account, I still see a lot of even play between these two teams. Who do I give the edge to, though, in a 2-1 series? I'm going to give it to the Cauldron. I honestly trust that team really well because I've scrimmed against them a decent amount, played against them. They are so tough to break down, probably more than Mad Hat Massive was.
So you're giving them all 3 points?
I'm going to give them a 2-1.
Okay. Boy, this is getting real interesting.
Is it 8 points again?
8 points again. You are just lining up all the 8s in a row here. Man, look, Magic is great and phenomenal as a player who's carrying his team. We've seen plenty from other players on their team. I mean, Polska is just, absurd in front of goal. But I don't see it. Not against Cauldron. Cauldron are just way too good to give up points, and I think they're gunning, knowing full well that this is a matchup they should take 3 points in. They believe they should take all 3 points. Garden, Caesar, and I mentioned, Serrano earlier. Look, if Serrano's on his game, you're not touching him. And I just think Mad Hat take all 3 of these, or not Mad Hat. I think Cauldron take all 3 points from Mad Hat. It's gonna be a good matchup even still. Like, I don't think it's gonna be a blowout for the Cauldron. I think at least not all 3. I think there may be one that might be a blowout, but I think the other two matches will be 1-goal, 2-goal affairs, and in Rocket League, that's tight.
Mm-hmm. Very fair. We haven't deviated too far from our predictions so far. Probably only about 1 game difference.
Yeah, I think one game at most from any given series. I don't think we've deviated too far otherwise. And I to be fair, I think these are slightly easier to predict in my opinion than last week's. Where last week's for me were very tough.
That's very fair. The last week's were pretty. There was a lot of just back and forth. You could literally predict anybody. But this will be an interesting one. I really want to keep my eye on this next matchup. Not only because it has implications on our season, but also just because I have a vested interest in both these teams and watching them play. Los Verdes versus Southmost.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, this is so hard because Southmost, you've seen them in the past couple of weeks. They have not looked themselves. Granted, they got half of the possible points out of 6. They got 0 from Libres, 3 from us. And we definitely know they haven't looked the best. And in game 3, that's where we actually started to see some prime Southmost. A lot of team plays together. Ruben was definitely on his game.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris was definitely helping out, trying to just set up Ruben for whatever. And Rye Guy was always there for anything in front of net. So that's obviously something to take there. However, getting goals past Los Verdes, that's a huge ask. But being the person that I am, and I hate to predict series sweeps unless I have to, I'm going to give a 2-1 to Los Verdes. They'll take 2.
All right.
They'll go to 9 points.
All right. Interesting. Just so you know, that puts Los Verdes at 9 points, which as of right now, without the Roadies match being discussed yet, they would be tied with the Roadies. Of course, we know the Roadies match is coming up next, so we'll get to that in a minute. But look, I'm gonna. Chris is out to prove something right now. Ruben's out to prove something right now. The whole team is out to prove something right now. And I think that this is their opportunity against a team that they know that they should lose to. They won't say that outwardly, but I guarantee you those internal discussions are, no matter what happens, just know that we gave it our all. That's all they're trying to do, right? Blah, blah, blah. It's all talk. But I believe this Southmost, if they have figured it out, which I think maybe they're starting to, if they've kind of changed that little bit of, the aggression is still there. The kind of bumps and demos and those kinds of things are still there, but they're doing it more intelligently. They're not just going out there and that's all they're doing. That now they're picking and choosing their moments to push and picking and choosing their moments to kind of stay back and protect. Look, Los Verdes, you're going to get their opportunities. It's going to happen, but I'm actually going to give Southmost the series win here 2-1 over Los Verdes. I think this is going to be one of the most highly contested series of the week by far. I just don't think there's many other matches in this week that are going to equate to this level of closeness in terms of, we're talking, I mentioned last series there's going to be one blowout probably, and then the rest are going to be really close. This one is going to be close the whole way through. I'm thinking like 1 to 2 goals max separating these teams across all 3 matches, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2 of these go into OT. But like I said, 2-1 Southmost.
I wouldn't be surprised though, and yet still only 1 game deviating between us and predictions there. Granted, change of pace of who wins the series, but still only 1 game. And now we go to the final series. And sorry, this might not have much discussion. The Roadies versus Los Verdes. I know Los Verdes have a pretty stout defense whenever it comes to this stuff, but look at the creativity of the Roadies. 3-0. Sorry.
I mean, it kind of sucks because I wanted to have more to talk about this week in terms of, predictions, but I can't look at the matchup. I can't look at the comparison of these two teams, and I can't say to you, oh yeah, I can see where Los Verdes could snag a upset here or there. Look, they were playing really well last week, and they still couldn't figure it out. I just, I don't see it for Los Verdes. I'm sorry, I just don't. No offense, Husky. No offense, Joel. I just don't. I don't see it for you guys. And so with that being said, and the way that the Roadies are playing, the way that Pandy is playing and grinding right now, and the other guys on the Roadies, look, this is a series sweep for the Roadies, 3-0. Do you want to know the final standings based on your point predictions right now?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, so we got Roadies in first in Group B. We've got the Cauldron with 8 points in Group B, tied with Louisville with 8 points in Group B. We've got Mad Hat with 6 points in Group B. We've got Los Verdes remaining at 3 and Mint City remaining at 0 on the week. So not a lot of shifting there. Just Cauldron and Cooper's tying at the end of the week, according to you.
Okay.
For me, for Group B, I've got Cauldron at 9 points. Roadies at 12, same as you. I've got Cauldron at 9 points, which keeps them in second. I've got Louisville with 8 points, just like you did, so that puts Louisville one slot below Cauldron, like they are now. I've got Mad Hat remaining with their 4 points, Los Verdes with their 3, and Mint City with their 0. So literally no change in the order, just point total shifting a little bit. Honestly, everybody pretty much staying about as close as they were before, just Mad Hat not quite remaining nearly as close to Louisville as they are right now. Now, Group A, this is the fun one here. So for you, you've got Los Cinco Doce at 9 points as number 1. You've got Libres y Locos tied with 8. Nope, sorry. Libres y Locos with 8 points, and Dark Clouds, that was the one I was looking for. Dark Clouds with 8 points. So both teams tied with 8 points in second and third. And then you've got Southmost with 6. And you have, is there anybody else? Nope, that's it. So Southmost with 6 will be in fourth. You guys have 3 points, and then ESR have 2. I see what you did there. I see it now. It was a long play. You were long playing that one. Just if I say ESR aren't winning a single match, then I'm in a good position because Steel Army only needs to take 1 to be 1 slot ahead of ESR and not be in last place in Group A.
We're also really good at separating goal differential right now because we're barely losing games right now.
Yeah, that is something that is important, especially as we hit the we have hit past now the midpoint of the season, or we're still technically at the midpoint of the season, moving into week 4. When action starts for week 4, I mean, you've only got 3 matchups left, 3 series left in the season, and that at most you're talking 90 goals, but ain't nobody walking away with 90 goals except those who have 3 forfeits sitting ahead of them.
So, wow, after all those predictions, Group of Death is just something else. A lot of ups, a lot of downs. You start to see the separation in the top 4 versus the bottom 2 in both cases for us. But I guess in your case, there's a little less separation. Actually, no, it's about the same, right? Because you had Southmost and Steel Army.
You had more teams. You had more teams locked in at 8 points than I did. Other than that, ours were pretty close. Pretty close.
Okay. And then most of what we've seen so far from Group B, that one's been pretty consistent at least, which I'm kind of surprised. I
have to correct myself. I am wrong. I had Los Cinco Doce and Dark Clouds tied with 8 points at the top of Group A. Libres y Locos with 7 points, tied with Southmost with 7 points at the top of your group. Steel Army with 4, and then ESR with 2. My apologies. I got that wrong.
Man, if that's the case, this group sucks to be in.
I mean, Group of Death, I think, is actually a very apt, we use it all the time in the soccer world. It is very, very apt as a description of this group. I mean, the truth is, again, looking at those 4 teams, granted, Libres y Locos was not a team anybody had any indication of what their level was going to be in terms of level of play going into this season. But they have proven that they belong in that top 4. And if they and Southmost can remain in that 7 to 8 point range, I mean, all 4 of those teams are perfectly primed to move into playoffs if it is the top 4 teams. If it's only the top 2 teams, that is a tight race. If it's 8-8 and 7-7 moving into week 5, I mean, that's going to be crazy.
Absolutely so. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up for our SGL 1 side of things. So let's go move right into SGL 2, which, sorry, SGL 1. SGL 2 is like the most fun league to watch. Just saying.
From your mouth to God's ears. I mean, just absolutely insane right now.
That league is so fun.
It's fun, and there are very few matchups that we haven't seen some sort of level of surprise come out of that matchup. Very few out of SGL 2.
Absolutely. So let's jump right to it. Top moments of the week. After watching, oh my gosh, how do I pick a top moment from this? You got two really stressful series, but honestly, if I had to tell anybody the top moment for this past week was, literally just watch the entirety of Tigers SG versus RGV. There was literally nonstop boomer back and forth, passing plays, shots, demos. It's like these guys could not stop. Like it seems like they were picking up boost pads wherever they went, and they did not stop holding down boosts.
Yeah, man, this one hurts because anticipated the U sector surge match being closer than it was. Now there was a closeness factor in terms of minus the one game that U sector really had the blowout. I felt like we were playing pretty well. Maz was standing on his absolute head for 90% of all three of those matches. I mean, that is a Maz I haven't seen very much of, and it pisses me off because I know we can play better. I know we can do better. But he was otherworldly. And if I had to pick a moment of the week, it would be Maz hitting that double tap in the match, because that was just, I literally dropped my controller for a second, and I was like, that's how this week is going to be. Okie dokie then. Like, I knew at that point that we really didn't have much of a chance. We didn't stop trying, and I certainly was out there playing my heart out. But man, I mean, he was just flying so fast, and so, like, he was everywhere. He was literally everywhere.
Absolutely. So Maz literally could not be stopped. And Northy Jr. joining with Merkang as well. Fun moments out of that one. Honorable mention, I'm going to throw it to Fire Pulse with the 5 goal game for NYC 12 as well. That's how much I enjoy League 2 that I have an honorable mention for top moments of the week.
Yeah, for sure. So, if I have an honorable mention this week, I have to agree with you that Fire Pulsa, but there's a caveat to that. I am so excited to see Allen snag that goal in that match. I that was my moment of the week. Look, Allen, I'm giving you a huge shout out on the show right here, right now. But I was rooting, and you heard it in my voice. I was legitimately rooting to see Allen just pop something out of nowhere, and he did a couple of times in those matches. And I knew that Pulsa could be that good. I know that Allen has that much more that he can be good in terms of the level of play that he has. But to see him hit it, and to just I mean, he wasn't on the stream. We didn't get to hear his voice, but I guarantee you he was so excited about that and so excited to hit that one. And it was a banger.
Absolutely. That wraps up our top moments. Now for the really tough part. The top 3 and the bottom 3 of SGL2. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first for top 3?
This one. Sorry.
That's perfectly fine. I'm ready for this one. The toughest thing, or people are going to argue with me for number 1, and that's kind of fair, because after the performances we've seen so far, that's fair, and there's not much separating these top 2. But number 1, I'm going to give it to NYC 12. I'm going to have to pick them in this case.
Ooh, wow. All right.
Yeah. Looking at their performance that we've seen so far, I'm impressed. They've gone out into League 2 and literally taken it. They've done it against RGV. And then now, just the way they've been playing recently, Fire Pulsa and Pandering starting to develop that connection really well. I'm going to have to give it to them. And then barely behind them, U Sector. I know they just played a Surge team that did not play yet, but still, U Sector, man, they just knew how to lock it down. So got to give credit to them there. And at number 3, man, sorry, RGV. I know you guys have got so many entertaining matches, but also got to look at results. I got to give it to Tigers SG. And after that super entertaining series, they were able to pull out a 2-1 win and remain level with NYC 12 right now. So I'm going to give it to them. So the top 3 teams in SGL2, but not in point order.
No. I mean, kind of. The only difference you have between your top 3 and the actual points is just having NYC 12 ahead of U Sector. That's it. Otherwise, the points are right there. Look, if I look at the top three, I think for me, honestly, after playing U Sector, here's the thing. After playing U Sector, I'm going to repeat that. After playing U Sector, it is very clear to me that U Sector are right now playing at a different level. If they can continue to come out that fast and play that way against every other team, look, they've already shown they can do that against pretty much every team in Group C. But if they can come out in those matches against Group D and play the same way, and they can prove it, then I don't think there's anything that's going to stop U Sector. I don't think there's anybody that's going to stop U Sector when we get to playoffs at this point. Look, as good as NYC 12 are as a team, if Maz is playing that good and Northie Jr. and J Cool are playing like they were playing, look, NYC 12 may take a match off them, but they're not taking two. They're not taking all three. And, I mean, there's not another Tigers SG. They'll compete with them, but they're not. I mean, at the end of the day, in my opinion, Tigers SG are not good enough to compete with U Sector in 3 matches. They're just not. And that's a big, bold statement from a guy that just played U Sector literally Saturday. But I'm saying that because I played them. I know how good Maz can be. I've seen him play. And as good as he was on Saturday, I've seen him play even just as good, or if not better, in competitive matches. In Rocket League, non-tournament, non-this match, non-SGL matches, but actual just comp matches with me on his team. And, I mean, the dude can be GC quality, and there's not many players in Group C or D that can claim that. Fire Pulses certainly can't claim to be close to GC. I mean, he's relatively close. He's going to hate me saying that. Champ 2, I think, Champ 3. But, I mean, Maz has been there. He proved it. He's as good as advertised. So that's my one. Then I do have to give it to NYC 12, and then I do have to give it to Tigers SG. Those are my top 3. And I mean, it's not just points; it's how good I've seen all 3 of those teams play.
Very fair. They both have a top 3, just slight different placement, but honestly, I could see U Sector being 1 too. So now here comes the other one, the bottom 3. And before we start this off, we remove Los Verdes too, right?
I think we have to at this point. So there's an extra spot available for the bottom 3.
So sorry to anybody that ends up getting bumped into this spot because of Los Verdes too. All right. At the bottom, I'm going to go with the Midnight Riders at the bottom. And they're not too far off from another spot. They showed a lot of promise in their last matchup with Black Army, getting their first point of the season. There's a lot to take away with that. Icurdy played incredible, trying to get that team back into play, but ultimately it's just not enough. Next up from them, Pride 812. I just haven't seen enough from them this season. I know they pulled out a point against Elmwood Elite, and then they had the 2v3 El Matador, which is already rough in its own aspect because you're playing against Luis. But just quite haven't seen enough out of Pride 812 yet to really confidently put them above the bottom 3. And to round that out, man, this one's tough. I'm going to give it to Elmwood Elite. And I know Black Army came off a matchup against the Midnight Riders, which is one thing. But Elmwood Elite, there are a lot of positives to take from their play. I really think this team is capable of more. But like with Pride 812, I just have not quite seen it yet from them. Black Army, they've been all over the place this season. Like 2 players, 3 players, whatnot. But whenever they're led by Knight, they got something at least decently special to take it. They have really good opportunities to go off of. But I'm gonna round it off with Elmwood.
I agree with most of your bottom 3. I'm gonna agree with you. Obviously, bottom is Midnight Riders, and it's interesting I can say that because we know that they're gonna get 3 points this week against against the team that's forfeiting in Los Verdes Dos. So they're gonna be at 4 points at the end of the week. But we've seen we've seen improvement. Don't get me wrong, but I still think Pride 8-1-2 in a matchup against Midnight Riders, which by the way we get the last week of the season. If you didn't know, Pride 8-1-2 versus Midnight Riders last week of the season. We're gonna find out who really is that bottom team of the league. I hate that I get to position it that way, but I get to position it that way. It's the fight for the wooden spoon of SGL2, if you will. But I have to give it to Midnight Riders at this point, but with a caveat that Pride 8-1-2 are that bottom, they're like literally a half rung above them. I wouldn't even say a full rung. Like they're just, they're right there. There's not a lot of difference here. And in a matchup, against Midnight Riders with a full team on both sides, I think it's entirely possible we could see all three of the matches go to overtime against all, with all those teams. But I do think I have to give the edge just slightly to Pride 8-1-2. So Midnight Riders last, Pride 8-1-2, a spot above them. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. Look, Elmwood proved that they are pretty solid. Matador proved they are pretty solid. A team to me that has not proved anything and to me had a major hiccup this week against Midnight Riders, Black Army. Look, they haven't proved anything at this point through the first 3 weeks of the season. Their 3 points, if I'm not mistaken, those 3 points came off. Who did they play? Was it Los Verdes Dos? Yeah, it was Los Verdes Dos. And then they had 2 points that they took off Midnight Riders. I mean, that's not if that's my resume going in as Black Army, even though they've got all the points, that's not a strong resume to take into next week. Now, with that said, I did notice that in chat on the Discord that they've got a new player, and that is intriguing to me because that's going to be a lot tougher than I had hoped for our matchup this week. We play them this week. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, again, Black Army right there in my opinion, and I think Elmwood and Matador just edged them out. Matador proved this week that they've got some good, solid play starting to build. And I think, it was a 3v2, through all three matches. But, look, you got to see how good Luis can be, and I think Luis is starting to figure out that if you hang back a little bit more and you let your guys be the ones to push up so that you can stay back on defense, you can be a pretty strong force in that Group D.
Good stuff. Good discussion out of this. But now, to the final segment of SGL2, the one that you're probably waiting for the most, maybe to get some inspiration here for the week. Predictions.
Yeah.
And let's talk about these matchups. And right off the bat, can't say anything. Midnight Riders got 3 points.
Yay.
Playing Los Verdes too.
I mean,
congrats.
So here's the thing, though. That puts Midnight Riders at 4 points. That puts them knocking on the door of Black Army, depending on their results. Knocking on the door of Viking Army, pending their results. Knocking on the door of Surge, pending on their results. I mean, as low as Midnight Riders are in most people's opinion, I mean, those 3 points are huge for them. And the point that they took last week off Black Army is even bigger because they're just knocking on that door of fourth place in the league, and that's not something anybody saw coming into this season.
No, not at all. So potentially get a little shakeup here. Now, it's a second matchup. Viking Army versus U Sector. I have not seen a ton of Viking Army yet. In fact, I'm disappointed I haven't seen enough of them because their playstyle is always frustrating. They're very good at being in goal and getting it away from the goal. And then if you're literally caught out once, they'll just pop it over you and score. So you got to be careful of that. Given I haven't seen too much of them, and I've seen what U Sector can do, and I've seen what they do with Viking Army in the playoffs last season, and then U Sector now having Maz. Yes, sorry, Viking Army. I'm gonna have to. This might be a little awkward, but I'm gonna give it a 3-0 to U Sector.
I mean, I don't know why you're saying that's awkward. That's exactly what I predict is going to happen here. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We haven't seen much out of Viking Army this season. Just they haven't played much. But we also have seen plenty from U Sector. Look, they've played in every match they've could have played in, and they've played very, very well. So I don't think there's any question they keep that streak alive going into this week and against a Viking Army team that I don't know how look if all three players are there and they're playing their best, then maybe they can steal one from U Sector. I just don't see it. I think it's 3-0 B
And
sector, and I don't even think it's close.
I don't think we've seen the trio yet. We've seen Fugum, we've seen Flavor Purple, we've seen Bob McLovin together.
But
But
not
I want to see those front two, Fugum and the Flavor Purple with Steezy McGee. I really want to see that combo bad.
Agreed.
I need to see it. So
Agreed.
look forward to see what they got over here. Next matchup, Tigers SG versus Elmwood. I think Tigers are just going to keep rolling with their winning ways after taking care of RGV past week 2-1. I think they're going to take a 3-0. I think the way they abuse the backboard is going to be too much for Elmwood to handle.
Man, I'm gonna get so much hate over this, I'm sure, and that seems to be a trend, everybody. But look, I foresee Tigers SG taking it to Elmwood in all three of these matches, but I do see Elmwood managing to squeak out a win in one of these matches. I think it's going to be one of those where they're literally just defending for their lives, and and Tigers SG just get caught out for whatever reason on a downfield boom clear that just happens to slip into goal, or a miscue in front of goal, and they give up the goal. Whatever it is, Elmwood take one off Tigers SG, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal for Elmwood, and that's a big deal for Tigers. So it's my prediction.
Fair. A little bold, but, I respect it. I really respect it.
I think you were the one who made the note that it's really hard to go 3-0 in a lot of times, because there's just things that happen that you can't foresee and you can't predict, and I think this is one of those situations where it's just something we can't foresee or predict, and I'm predicting the unpredictable is going to happen.
After that prediction, El Matador versus RGV Stampede. Now, gosh, as much as I really want to see El Matador pull one out in a 3v3. Yeah, actually, you know what? I am going to give him one. I'm going to go bold and say
In the same way that he was, practicing in the off season during SGLCS together as well. They've put in the hours, they've put in the time. NYC 12 are just on another level. Pride 812, I'm sorry you're not at that level. If you want to get at that level, you got to grind the same way they're grinding. You got to find ways to work together as a team and really push forward and push yourselves forward. I don't see any way. Look, as much as I just said, look at what Matador can do, I don't see this with Pride 812. This is a team that's not going to take any points off NYC 12, and I foresee NYC 12 taking all three.
We agreed on that front. To the final match, you, the Surge, versus Black Army. Well, I know J-Rad was feeling pretty comfortable after that Riders win, and the Surge are itching for more games. I think they're not going to take too well to getting beat by U Sector, I believe 3-1 in all 3 games last week. Yeah, I'm barring all of you just not able to play, gonna have to give a 3-0 to the Surge.
Fair. I like the prediction. As of right now, I'll give you a little insider information. As of last check, I believe we currently only have 3 players available for Saturday's match. Thankfully, it's Andres, myself, and Andres being Bandana FC. Sorry, Bandana FC, myself, and HTX Fresh. I feel very confident going into this match to the tune of 3-0. Surge are taking this. Look, I will tell you right now in chat, this is the exact words that Bandana said to us. I'm not losing on Saturday. He didn't get to play Saturday against U Sector, and I've never seen him so focused and so ready for a matchup in my life. He was not able to play due to a last-minute work rescheduling, and he is absolutely gunning this week. And I can tell you, he is ready for this matchup. I'm ready for this matchup. I need this matchup as well as I played though against U Sector. Thank you very much. I need this matchup against Black Army. And look, we are coming out with something to prove this week. We want to take and secure that second spot in group what is it, Group D? Group C, right behind U Sector. And I believe if we do this week, if we can secure those 3 points this week, that's going to put us absolutely in prime position going into the week after that. So, yeah, Surge 3-0, and I'm sorry, Black Army, what we're going to do to you probably should not be aired on public television.
Oh, jeez. Getting nasty here at the end of these predictions.
Man, look, I gave Matador 3 points, right? So I have to give my boys 3 points, obviously myself included. But look, the talk is not. It's intended to try to edge Black Army a little bit, in the positive, to try to get them to step up. I know they're capable of it. Look, Knight is no joke. You watch him play; he's very, very good. But that being said, he's not Bandana. Myself and HTX Fresh, look, we're pretty darn good on our together as well. So. Look, if we're on our game, and I have no doubt we will be on our game on Saturday, I'm getting an energy drink beforehand just to be sure. I'm telling you, it's not even going to be close. Look, we're going mercy rule, baby. I'm not saying all 3 matches, but at least one is going to be a mercy rule.
He's gunning for everything here, and I respect the heck out of it. Well, that'll do it for predictions for SGL 2. A little bit of fire at the end there, but
so, do you want to know where that puts everybody at the end of week 4 for SGL2?
Proceed. We did SGL1. Let's continue the trend.
So you've got U Sector at 12 points, which will place them at the top of SGL2 completely. You've got the Surge with 9 points. You've got Viking Army with 6, Black Army with 5, and Midnight Riders with 4. Literally, the order of teams does not change in that group. I have it at 12, 9, 6, 5, 4, 0. So exactly identical to you, surprisingly enough, for Group C. Group D, however, we do deviate pretty significantly, and I'll tell you why.
El Matador?
Yeah, El Matador was definitely the one. El Matador / RGV. That obviously is the matchup of the week, in my opinion. But NYC 12, you have at 11 points. Tigers SG at 11 points, which is interesting. That keeps them tied going into week 5, which is very, very interesting to see. RGV, you have at 7 points, Matador at 4 points, Elmwood at 3, and Pride 812 at 1. So the same order for you, just with NYC 12 and Tigers SG tied at 11 points each. I have NYC 12 at 11 I have Tigers SG at 10 because, again, I said 1 point taken for whoever they were playing. I don't even remember. And then Matador I have at 6 points because they take all 3 from RGV. RGV at 5 points, and then Pride 812 at 1 point. So that is the flip there between Matador and RGV. Interestingly enough, that's teams 3 and 4 in Group D. And so if that does happen, depending on how many slots we have for playoffs, that's very interesting going into Week 5.
Yeah, that's definitely a interesting bottom 3 of that section you got over there. It's a lot of flip flop, but then you just literally separate it all in that final one. I think, what was it? RGV would be at 4th then?
Yeah, RGV would be at 4th. Now that would only put them 1 point behind Matador, so it's not entirely out of the question for, for them to sneak back into 3rd place. But they're going to have work to do, in my opinion, after this week, and I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to find out because, gosh, identical in the first group. All that one matchup just changed everything.
Also, the reason why I mentioned that Tigers SG and NYC 12, if they're tied at 11 points or even if they're 11 and 10 going into Week 5, this is why that's important. They are facing off in Week 5 as the last matchup of the week. That is huge because whoever takes the points from that matchup, if NYC 12 and Tigers SG are tied at 11 like you have them, then whoever takes that series is going to have the lead going into Week 6, which is most likely going to put NYC 12 at a pretty good position to take it all away. However, with that being said, if it's like I have it where NYC 12 is at 11 points and Tigers SG is at 10, if NYC 12 only take 1 point from that series and Tigers SG take 2, they'll be level going into Week 6.
And Week 6 is wild because that's a really tightly contested matchup. It's basically a derby between the New York teams.
Yeah, Week 5 is the derby. Week 5 is the derby, Tigers versus NYC 12. The Week 6 is Tigers versus Black Army and NYC 12 versus Viking Army. So it's the armies versus the Group D, if you will.
Yep, that's going to be wild. This is going to be a wild finish to that group.
I genuinely, I'm going to predict it right now. That group, the top 2 slots are going to come down to goal differential. They're going to tie even on points at the end of the season.
Interesting.
Which kind of gives you a hint as to my prediction for next week. Just saying.
Yeah.
Or not next week. Yeah, week 5. That's the prediction of my Week 5 there as well. So.
Gotcha.
We'll see, I guess, huh?
Absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for predictions here for SGL2. And that wraps up the entirety of this episode you're hearing here today. So, you stuck around long with us. Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out us every Friday and Saturday. Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Supporters Gaming League, twitch.tv/Supporters Gaming League for League One action on Friday night. And Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. I guess it might be 1:30 now, depending on the matchup.